Hey everybody, Russ here at Shaper Tools, and we just finished this week's session on installing side rail hinges and mortise locks for fine box making with Origin.
Yeah, this show is going to dive deep into all different kinds of probing routines, bringing in files from the hardware catalog, and cutting pretty deep mortises for these really precise machined parts.
Yeah, we had a lot of fun. The box turned out well, so stay tuned and enjoy the show.
And next time, join us live. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Shaper Sessions. My name is Jake.
I'm Russ.
Today, we are focusing on some fine box hardware.
Fine box hardware. We've got two different kinds that we're going to install today. We've got a side rail hinge and a mortise lock.
Yep, and if you're wondering what those are, so was I. They are very cool little mechanisms. You have one of those in front of you.
I've got a lock here. Yeah, should we show this off before we go too far?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, we got this nice detail cam. Check this out. Beautiful.
So if you're wondering how to class up your box, these definitely do it.
They take it from a fine box to a fine box.
There it is.
Terrible. We're going to show you how to install this specifically with Origin. I've got the lid of a box over here. Jake's got the box half clamped up on Workstation.
Yep.
Before we get started, same stuff as normal. This is our bi-weekly live stream where we teach you everything about how to use the Shaper system.
Yeah.
One application at a time. This is a live show. Thanks for tuning in. We've got a chat Q&A going on the side or on the bottom of your screen, depending on how you're watching. We've got Ted in the chat who's going to be responding to questions, and he's going to be sending us the juiciest questions to answer at the end of the show. So hang on for that. We've also got giveaways at the end. To enter that giveaway, there's going to be a poll question halfway through. We're going to ask you some questions about hardware. What else do we need to know before we start cutting? Some fine box hardware.
Today's going to be big on registration. We're going to use a lot of different grids. But the trickiest thing about getting all this hardware to be dead on is to just make sure that you're thorough in setting up your cuts. So
yeah, the benefit of using Origin here is that it's all very adjustable, adaptable, while at the same time being precise. That's why I prefer doing things this way as opposed to a lot of these, frankly, you can install on a router table. Not so much the mortise lock, that's a pretty sketchy one, but the side rail hinge was originally invented for router table installation into these fine boxes, but we still like to do it with Origin. They're adaptable. We're just going to show you the tricks that you need to know to get everything set up the right way.
Let's get into it.
Nice. You've got one set up here already. We like to just cut something first and then walk through the process. But what are we looking at over here, Jake?
So we're doing everything today on Workstation. I have the bottom of my box double stick taped down to my shelf, and I am pressed up against one of my vertical alignment pins there. First grid that we made is off the back edge, 1, 2, 3, and we're going to cut this hinge in the corner.
Nice. Where is the hinge that we're going to cut? I think I've got one right over here. What if we mock up just where that's going to go for everybody? Where's that going to end up sitting on this box?
It's going to be, we're working with 12 millimeter thick material. The hinge itself is 6 millimeters, so we're going to just nail it centered right there.
Perfect. All right, let's zip it out.
Today I'm using the 6 millimeter long reach bit, which is going to allow us to do that deeper mortise lock. But let's get after it.
Okay, looks like two passes without a pass, a roughing pass and a finishing pass. If you're new to the show, welcome. Thanks for joining us. We like to just get started off with a cut so that folks who are new to Origin can just get a feel for how it works. It's just like working with a plunge router, but Jake's going to follow the dotted line on the screen here. And as he's following that dotted line, you can see the dot, which represents our spindle, is tracking along that dotted line, no matter where Jake floats around inside that circle, which represents Origin's corrective range. So he's keeping the crosshairs roughly on top of the dot, but no matter where he's working within that range, Origin's going to keep him right on the line so that he gets a perfect cut with this hardware template. All the templates with Origin are digital, and we will show you how to sync these up from the hardware catalog shortly.
All right. right. You may have noticed I was real ginger as I was exiting that cut because and this is a nice fragile edge. I want to make sure that we don't apply too much force on that.
Mm-hmm. How's the fit on this?
Let's see. Perfect.
Oh, yeah. Really nice.
All right. So you also might have seen me add a little bit of depth. We talked about this right before the show. You want to just go ever so slightly deeper than they recommend so that when the box closes, you're not having brass on brass, right, of the hinge.
For these side rail hinges. Let's talk about side rail hinges more generally. I think so. We cut one. Let's take it all the way back to the start. Where did we get these templates? What even is a side rail hinge in the first place? There are a bunch of side rail hinges on the market. I've got 3 companies right off the top of my head that make these. Number 1, Smart Boxmaker, which are the hinges that we're using today. We've also got Fine Box Hardware, and both of these are based in the UK. They make really, really fancy stuff. They have integrated 95-degree stops. They're super highly polished, but they are much more expensive than the stuff that you can get in the States, and you have to wait for shipping. So some trade-offs there. The other ones that we've got are here from Brusso. We've got this side rail hinge. This also has that 95-degree stop built in, but with the trade-off of this has a square back, which might not be everyone's taste. I kind of like it, actually. I think it goes really well with the box. And then Brusso also makes these side rail hinges that actually don't have a stop at all. So if you have a box that you want to open 180 degrees, you can get these totally opening side rail hinges from Brusso. No stop required. They also make stops that you can add to the side of the box, like a lid stay, I think is what those are called. You ever use one of those lid stays?
Yeah.
So, side rail hinges in a nutshell. Where do we find the templates for them? We have templates for all of these hinges on the Shaper Hub hardware catalog. So, we just pushed out an update to the Shaper Hub hardware catalog that I don't think we've talked enough about. We added another 20 or 30, maybe, pieces of hardware.
Yeah. And
another 5 brands. That's a lot.
All right.
Goose did most of the work for this one, so prop to Goose for that. So let's check this out. Here's what we're looking at the hardware catalog. You can see we added a bunch of these concealed hinges from an Italian manufacturer, Seam. If we go into the filter here, we can actually filter for side rail hinges.
That list is getting longer and longer.
That's getting longer and longer. So here are all the side rail hinges that we've got on the Shaper Hub hardware catalog. 2 neat elite hinges from Fine Box Hardware. This is the one that we're going to use today, the Smart Hinge, and then Brusso has the SR301, SR638, and SR680. These are just different sizes, different configurations. If we click into this is the cool part. We can see all this information about the hinge. We've got the overall dimensions here, so we know what we're working with. 45 millimeters long, 8 millimeters wide, and 6 millimeters thick. That's 3 millimeters per side. Screw size, for example, recommended cutters that you want to use, mortise depth, minimum material thickness. These are originally intended for 12 millimeters, but with the precision of origin, you can go all the way down to 10 millimeters with these because they're 8 millimeter wide hinges. And then here's this cut template. So this is an inside cut, black boundary with a white fill. We don't talk much about the cut type encoding and different cut types outside of Origin, but if you're encoding this in an illustration software like Adobe Illustrator, you're going to do a black boundary with a white fill to cut inside this shape. We've got a custom anchor. This custom anchor represents the center point of the pivot on the hinge. We've got some clearance over here so that you can make sure you cut all the way past the edge so you don't have little cusps from your router bit at the edge of your box here. We've got some optional pilot holes to cut. These are originally encoded blue. So when we want to cut these, we'll just change them from a guide cut to an inside cut. And then up here, you'll see we've got some annotations, some information about the cut, so that when you're on Origin, you don't always have to go back to your phone or your computer to check out this information. We want to cut 3 millimeters deep. For this show, we're going a little bit extra deep because, like we said, pro fine box making tip, you don't want that brass to rub on itself. And And then we can cut this with either a 6mm or a 1/4" cutter. And today we're sticking with the 6mm cutter because that's what we're going to want to use to cut the second deeper step in this mortise lock. We've also got a PDF description here from the manufacturer that you could download if you hit download all files. Now, I already synced this to Origin. Obviously, we already cut one. But to send this to your router, to get ready to cut this, all you need to do is hit sync to my files right here at the top of the page. And that's going to send the template for this hardware straight to Origin, and you can get cutting. The reason that we do this is because it can be hard to learn to make these templates the first time. Or, you don't always want to be sitting at your workbench with your calipers, measuring your hinge and inputting all these numbers, even if you already know how to do it. So this is going to save you some time and hopefully get you started a little sooner with Origin, otherwise doing something a little more complicated than you otherwise would. So check out the hardware catalog, sync some hardware to Origin, and let's cut the next side rail hinge.
All right. For me, it's the custom anchor points that are built into all the hardware files. That just takes the guessing game out of it.
Totally.
All right. So in setting up for our next cut, I'm going to be using the probing bit, the backside of the engraving bit for all of our grids today because we want things to be right on the money. So reminder, that's just the engraving bit chucked up backwards.
It is a fine box, after all.
Fine. We're going for fine.
We're going for fine.
All right. I am keeping that original scan. You can see I have a grid here already. You can make another grid, and it basically just rewrites that original grid. But
this is something cool that I specifically wanted to talk about today because we don't talk about this very much. You can keep the same workspace. You can add a bunch of grids to it. You can stack your grids on top of each other. It's going to overwrite the previous grid, but once you set one thing up, if, for example, you're setting up a fixture with multiple parts, you can make one grid, set up your first part, set up your second grid on the second part, third grid, third part, and then you're going to have this whole workspace with a fixture that's aligned on a part-by-part basis. You don't necessarily need to be so smart about planning all those cuts relative to one grid point.
So a little bit of work ahead of time makes the rest of the whole process a lot more smooth. All right, here we go. We got simple backside grid. 1, 2, come around that edge. 3. Going to import my smart hinge. For this one, I need to do a 180 rotation.
Sometimes you need to flip these around. And we're going in 6mm from the edge to get that centered on a 12mm rail.
Nice. I don't care about what size my grid is. I can just tell it. Going -6mm over. And that Y direction is just snapped to 0.
Boom.
There it is.
So you can see we got that custom anchor right on Y equals 0, but we're protruding a little bit past the back of the box. Again, that's because we want to cut past the back of the box and clear that out. A lot of bit changes on this one.
A lot of spindle swaps.
We're going to get some spindle close-ups today.
All right. Always a good idea to Z-touch. And same thing on that depth. I'm going to add 0.005. Here we go.
Okay. All right, same thing. And that was pretty quick, but we're going to do this a couple of times throughout the show. That's really all there is to setting up a cut like this. We glossed over the scan. We'll make a new scan when we go to do the lid portion. But you're going to make a scan, take that kind of panoramic image of your workspace. You're going to go ahead and make a grid, which you saw Jake do, align to the corner of your box. And then you just want to divide the width of that rail by 2 when you place that template, and then cut it out following the specifications in the hardware template.
Go. Just double check. This has got to be one of the more satisfying hinge fits that I've ever experienced.
Very nice.
Again, just slightly subflush.
Neat. gets a little more complicated.
Yeah?
From
Sure?
now. Yeah, I think so, because we're about to do this mortise lock. Okay, so this is kind of the same profile as that hinge. If we zoom in on this over here, we've got kind of classic router lozenge shape on this, round on both ends, but we need to clear out this bottom part, the mechanism of the lock, and it's kind of a deep cut. Origins cutting depth max travel is 1.7 inches. This is definitely 1 inch or less, so it's going to fit well within there. But just the deeper you go, especially on a constrained cut like this, where we don't want to blow out the sides of our box, you just want to be more careful. This would be really tricky to do. I would feel so skeezed out doing this on a router table.
Oh, yeah.
Trying to drop this box down against the fence to cut to the depth of this mortise.
No, thank you.
So that's why we use Origin.
Yeah.
I think it makes stuff like this feel a lot more comfortable. That is how you would do it otherwise, I think, is on a router table.
Totally. And there's a couple different ways that you would do it even with Origin. Right now, because of the scale of our box, we're working on workstation on the shelf. If it was a little bit bigger, we might choose to actually just clamp the box to the clamping face.
This is actually what we were planning on doing before the show, but then we started setting up and we realized this box was a little bit small to clamp it up. Yeah. So you got options there.
If it gets a little bit bigger, that's where you start going over to plate and the edge mortising adapter, so you can actually clamp plate to the box itself.
Yeah. What else were we talking about for this box before the show? I remember it was whether you cut the hinges on the side toward the tape field of workstation, or whether you cut the mortise lock on the side that's forward toward the tape field on workstation. So how did you end up making the decision that you made there?
If we go to that over, yeah, there we go. If we had the hinges down here, the feeling of Origin kind of teetering on the corner, like as long as I'm putting downward pressure on this side, it's stable, but I want it to be a little bit more secure. If I'm cutting the center mortise lock, which is right in the center of this box, I'm supported on either side, and it feels good.
Yeah, and that's another weird box size thing, where if this box was any smaller than it was, you could fit the support bar on there. But right now, we're right on the cusp where that support bar looks like it fits, but it doesn't actually click into where it's supposed to hold. So,
which is okay.
Gray area, but that's how we ended up with cutting the corners farther forward and then cutting that more secure mortise toward the back. If something doesn't feel right when you're getting ready to cut, feel free to try a couple of different orientations because it might feel better another way.
All right, for this lower section, we want to center this locking mechanism on the edge of that piece. So we're going to take advantage of one of the new features, the rectangle probe, because this bottom edge is just a rectangle. And we want to find dead center of that.
Exactly. So you're going to probe 5 points on this rectangle using the rectangle probe. The rectangle not being the whole box here, but being just this edge of the box. And then this is going to automatically place this mortise lock dead center.
So that's our front edge, side edge, tip up.
Yep, lift in.
Bingo. And there we go. Oh, I did. I kept the earlier hinge. Or I'm sorry, the earlier grid.
Okay. Nice. Well, cool opportunity to show off that feature. This can add a grid optionally if you choose to. And it looks like by default, if you already have a grid, it won't overwrite that. But we do want to make sure on the bottom we have that grid option turned on. So we're going to add the grid there. And this box is a weird size. I think it's, I don't know. The rails are 12 millimeters thick, but I have no idea how long this box ended up.
Right.
So who knows where halfway is. Way easier to just let the machine do the measurements for this one.
The alternative would be to use position and tell it to go halfway over, but who knows? Maybe the overall size is in inches and the Thickness
Yeah,
is
who
the
knows?
metric.
Who knows?
All right. Back into my hardware. There's that smart lock. And I have a couple different files here. Looks like we're going for the case side.
Yeah. Yeah, we've got three parts. We've got the case, we've got the catch plate on the lid, and then there's a keyhole that we're also going to need to cut on the box that we'll cut after we cut this feature here.
0, 0. Drop it down.
Very nice. Does that look centered?
Looks
Pretty centered?
Yeah.
Sweet.
All right. Back over to the 6mm.
A lot of spindle swaps for this one. Good excuse to get a spare spindle. One for gritting, one for cutting, one for all the little keyholes that you're going to make with the 16th inch bit we're about to pull out.
And again,
Z touching again.
Yeah, just a good idea. Anytime I take the spindle in and out. All right, my first encoded depth is that, so I'm going to add 5 thou. Let's just go for it.
All right. Yeah, we've got 2 cuts to do here. Let it rip. 2 cuts on this one shallower cut and then one deeper cut. This shallower cut is going to be the fit, the show surface that you see. And then that deeper cut, it's going to have a little bit of clearance, so it doesn't have to be quite as precise, but it is going to be much deeper. So it's important to make sure to keep good control of origin, make sure that you've got a good stable setup like we talked about, so that you can cut deep without grabbing. And it looks like Jake's doing just that first 3mm deep show surface there. And then we will step in to the other cut. And I think what's going on there, Jake, is the roughing pass is going to be a little bit much there. So if we turn off that roughing pass, it should be able to be selected. And 0.984 inches final dimension on this. Looks pretty good. You can see we've got a little bit of extra room there, so if you wanted to use a roughing pass and a finishing pass on this, you totally could. You would just need it to be a little bit less than what we had set up for that first step mortise. If your roughing pass is large, sometimes this is why those cuts might not show up as selectable with AutoPass. If that roughing offset's too large, Origin's going to say, hey, I'm trying to calculate this, but there's no way to fit this toolpath inside the pocket that you're trying to cut. So to find those cuts, I would go ahead and turn the roughing pass off first, and then see how much room you have to add that back in. We have probably a 0.5 millimeter on this that we could have added back in. But since this isn't a show surface, it'll cut just fine as a finishing cut only.
That is awesome.
Yeah, pretty cool, right? You want to give that a try? Here, you know what? You know what I like to do before I put that in, actually? Turn the catch up so that you have something to pull it out with if you need to.
Good choices.
Yeah, there you go. Nice.
All right. There is no top or bottom.
What do we do? A little snug?
A little snug. I want to knock off maybe a couple thou. Just from that top. The
Yeah.
bottom's perfect, though.
Fair. 3 thou, something like that?
Yeah.
And we can turn AutoPass off for this. You just need to do that in one quick little offset finishing pass. Yeah. Barely even need to turn on the vacuum for stuff like this. Just 0.003 of an inch doesn't remove much material. But you're going to come back and we'll see the difference in fit between this before and after when Jake comes in and refits that mortise lock.
Ooh, it's close.
A little snug still?
Just a little. It's always nice to creep up on it, though.
5 thou.
5.
There we go.
5 thou.
Always nice to be able to creep up on it. And this is a testament to that repeatability of Origin. It's so nice being able to go over what you just cut and fine-tune it a little bit as you need to.
There we go.
Yeah? That's it?
That is it.
Wow.
All right.
Now, I've got to recommend, we didn't want to wear black nitrile gloves for the whole session. But
yeah.
Here's another fine box making polished brass tip. These really do pick up fingerprints. So if you're using this hardware, I would recommend try to handle it with gloves only, because I think you'll probably see some tarnish on this even before we're done with this show.
Yeah, I can see a fingerprint.
We'll get a polishing cloth. We'll buff it off. It'll buff out.
Ready to remove?
Let's remove. Wait. Shoot.
Oh,
We were going to do the pilot holes.
We still can.
We still can. We could regrid and do the pilot holes and everything. Well, you set up the pin.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's stick it back on and do some pilot holes. I'm torn on whether we should actually do this because we discovered before the show, guys, that our flathead screwdriver walked away from the shaper shop here. And so we're not actually going to be able to install the screws for this show. We're relying just on friction fit only for the test fit on this one. But I think it would be good to go ahead and test fit just a couple of these pilot holes just so that folks know how it works. Yeah.
We're swapping
And
over.
it's cool to be able to, use that reference pin and pop that back down.
Yeah. It
Pretty
is.
slick.
So we're swapping over to a tiny little 16th inch upcut bit using that 1/8 inch collet. And we're not going very deep on these, so.
No. Yeah. The what's the cutting length on these? 1/4 of an inch? 4-to-1? 3-to-1 is usually about the right aspect ratio. I think they do 3-to-1 usually. Like 1/4 inch cutter, 3/4 inch cut length. 16th inch cutter, 3/16 inch cut length. But what we could do is, we can add the 3 millimeters, of course, that the side rail hinge depth is. Because we've got some clearance there.
1/4 inch plus 3 millimeter.
I think that should clear it. You think this is a 1/4 inch cut length? I think it is.
Yeah, at least.
Okay.
Okay. And if you missed it before, what I did is I can see that really subtle pilot hole. I want to make sure that I select it because it's currently set to a guide. And I can just change that to an inside, and that makes it cuttable.
Yeah, we make these guides because not everybody wants to cut these pilot holes on everything. You can hit it with a drill, but it's really nice to be able to start it with Origin.
Yeah. All right, here we go.
And this is going to be super quick. We're just helixing down to the bottom of that. It is almost as fast as drilling, frankly, and then helixing down to the bottom of this one. That's Origin cutting automatically to that diameter in one cut all the way down to depth.
Sweet.
Does that look good?
That's great.
Cool. I think it's hard to see on the camera, but we could pop that up and hold it up.
I thought when you said wait, you were joking.
No, I wasn't joking. That was suspense in action right there. Yeah, look at those pilot holes. Those are nice. Okay, so now we're going to flip this, and we're going to cut the keyhole. Or we learned how to pronounce this on a show at one point. What do we say? Escutcheon? Escutcheon, I think.
That doesn't sound right.
Somebody's going to correct me in the comments. I remember, rhymes with discussion. Escutcheon. Tell me how to pronounce this.
Feels
And
like
I'm
it should
curious
have
where this word comes from also. Escutcheon. Sounds French.
Sounds very French. Escutcheon.
Escutcheon.
All right, a little double-sided tape.
Mm-hmm. What are we taping? You're going to tape that to, to the shelf. Okay, nice.
And drop our shelf down.
Yeah, this one, because we're doing this, I guess I was assuming that you were going to clamp this, but
Yeah,
because we have the shelf out already, there's 5 different ways to do everything.
there is.
This is a tall box, so at this point, maybe you could clamp it, you can stick it down to the shelf, we're just going to grid it, and we're going to cut this tiny little keyhole for this tiny little key. And so there aren't going to be many cutting forces on this or anything. Normally, I'd say this is kind of far from the shelf. This is like a pretty tall thing to put on the shelf, but we're cutting like nothing at the same time when we're cutting this keyhole. Nice.
Feels
and now
good.
we can use that support bar. Very important at this point to remember which side the top of the box is, because you would not want to cut the keyhole from the bottom of the box, from the bottom edge. You want to make sure you cut that keyhole from the top edge.
You know what's fun? Russ made the box.
I
I'm
made
cutting
the
into
box,
it now.
and I don't even remember which side the top is.
This is a fun game. It's like whoever cuts it, the other person has to assemble it.
Whoever assembles it, the other person has to cut it. This one's backwards. I don't really care so much about this box, though.
Really?
Yeah, what was the last thing that I really cared about? Remember that?
Oh, it's your cabinet.
Oh, my cabinet. Yeah. That was a real nail biter.
High
This
stakes.
box. It's a box. Probably take it home after this.
Starting off with a fresh scan.
New scan. So we're going to dial it back, starting from the very start with a fresh scan for this workspace. And if you're just getting hands-on Origin for the first time, this is always going to be your first step. It's like taking a panorama with your phone. You're just taking a big picture of your workspace, and Origin's going to stitch those together into this map. Now we can see workstation on there and this face of the box.
And we talked about making a grid or making a 5-point.
I don't know if this is going to work, but we had talked about trying to make a 5-point rectangle just on that edge.
Let's give it a shot.
It seems like it should work.
Okay.
I'm going to hold my breath for a little bit on explaining this, just in case it doesn't do what we want it to. We ran out of time to test this one before the show. We're going to try to rectangle probe just on an edge to see if it'll give us the center point.
1, 2.
We want to get the sides.
3. Now I'm going to come back over to this.
You're going to come back, yeah, right there.
4, 5.
Yeah,
That worked perfectly.
pretty cool.
Who needs math?
Who needs math? We've got the center of a box. We've got the center of the edge right here. Nice. So the custom anchor point for this keyhole is going to be on the edge. That defines the distance down from the edge that the keyhole is actually going to be located. So we can go ahead and import that. This is in that batch of files that comes with the mortise lock. And do we need to rotate this one? No?
I don't think so.
No, that looks perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Good.
that looks great. Very keyhole-like. I love it when something works the way that you expect it to.
Yeah.
It's a pleasant surprise not knowing if the tool's going to do the smart thing just because we haven't tested it, and somebody already thought of that. It's great. I don't think anybody's done that here before.
You haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen
haven't
that
either.
anywhere. Yeah. You saw it first on Shaper Sessions.
Sean's probably in the background going, I've done it.
Yeah, probably.
All right.
We got a 16th-inch cutter.
16th-inch cutter.
We have a 12-inch rail and a mortise that's already cut 6 millimeters wide. So we really, 12-inch rail, 12 millimeter rail, and a mortise that's cut 6 millimeters plus wide already. So we really should only need to go 3 millimeters deep for this.
Okay.
Maybe make it 3.5, just for clearance's sake.
Oh, that's fun.
Is it going to helix?
It's going to helix.
Ooh. Okay.
Let me check my speeds here.
Yeah. Don't want to be hanging on for dear life on this one. This is a precise cut, this keyhole.
Yeah, we'll stick with the default. All right, here we go.
Okay. This is going to be quick. So that helix mode is going to be just like what we used for the pilot holes on the side rail hinge. Origin is automatically going to follow this path, and because it fits inside the corrective range, it's going to go ahead and cut all the way down to that thickness that Jake specified, 3.5 millimeters or so, all in one go. He's not moving the tool, just going to cut that out. How's it look?
I would say that's
Keyhole-ish?
very keyhole-ish.
If we had a little triangular Swiss file, we could clean out those corners, but I think as long as the key fits in there, I'm going to be happy.
That's great.
All right, that's it for the box side. Let's pop it off. What do you think? Should we drop the mortise lock in there?
Let's see if we lined up.
Oh, yeah. Awesome. I like that. And the last time we did the show, we had a question about, like, hey, we did the box side. What about the lid? So we're going to cover all our bases today. We're going to hit the lid also, but after these announcements.
Into announcements.
So, we talked about this giveaway at the end of the show. We're giving away a set of side rail hinges. We should give away... Oh, yeah, we're going to give away a set of side rail hinges. I should have said that right at the top. We're going to give away... I think we should give away the 6 millimeter bit that we've been using.
Love it.
And to enter that giveaway, Ian on the switchboard is going to pop up that poll question, what hardware should we add to the Shaper Hub hardware catalog? I think that might be backwards because the grain matches one direction, not the others. Does that look more right?
No.
No. Maybe it was the other way. Anyway, what hardware should we add to the Shaper Hub hardware catalog? We're at 200 plus pieces of hardware. Your recommendations are always making this better. Specifically, want to shout out Owen, who asked for the Rock York hinges to be added in this round. Those were a big hit at the Kitchen and Bath Industry Show last weekend. So love getting these recommendations and getting them in. Next, announcements. Jake is catching a flight tomorrow to the Florida School of Woodworking.
Yep.
And it's kind of too late to join.
It is. It is entirely sold out.
But it's cool that we're going to be there. Jake's going to be at the Florida School of Woodworking teaching an Intro to Origin class, and then Eric Curtis is going to be following up the rest of the week.
Yeah.
Teaching Origin class. He's going to... Do you know what topics he's covering?
Oh, he's doing a lot of things. He's doing
Building
a small cabinet,
Building a small cabinet.
a side table, inlays. So it's a 5-day course, and he's going full into a couple different big projects.
The point that I'm getting to here is that we're doing more classes all over the country on Shaper Origin, and you should stay tuned to your local or regional woodworking school to see if there's an Origin class coming to you. We also have an events page on our website. If you scroll down at the bottom, it says Find Us. Check that out. That's going to have a list of all of our events coming up so that you don't miss the next one.
Nice.
And, okay, last but not least, we don't have a shop tour this week. You all need to send us some shop tours. We have specific requests for small, messy, inexpensive shops because the last shops that we've shown have been big, clean, expensive shops. And we love them. It's so impressive. but I think it's a little intimidating.
Got to show both sides.
You got to start somewhere. You got to show both sides. So especially if you have a small, messy, inexpensive shop, send us a shop tour, 3 minutes-ish long, landscape mode, narrated please, to our email address, sessions@shapertools.com. And if we play it on the show, we'll send you a $50 gift certificate to the Shaper store.
I like that. I like that we actually have a thing now, because I used to just say something nice.
Something nice. You can
Pretty
pick your own
nice.
something nice. You could pick a good router bit or a collet with that, or a t-shirt. But in the meantime, we got a really nice email. And I love the time that this person spent to write out this email. So I want to read it to you. And then I'm going to show you guys all some projects that they sent to us. Because I love seeing what people are making with Origin. Okay. You ready to hear this?
Yeah.
All right. Friends, I've been a pretty serious hobbyist woodworker for 50 plus years, and over that time have created a wonderful workshop and many pieces of furniture, gift items, lamps, cabinets, tables, turnings. Great fun. That's a lot. Holy smokes. Life seems to go better when I have a project going in the shop. Having the Origin for the last 7 years, I had one of the first out of production. I have started thinking about my woodworking in a different way. This past year provided a couple of simple examples, but you might be interested in the thought process that brought the Origin into the project for a quick and easy solution. For Christmas last year, I received a Ryobi battery-powered hand vac and wanted to mount it to the wall for storage and charging. The traditional woodworker in me thinks wall mount plate with dado across it and bracket that fits in the dado with a cutout for the vacuum. The first operation involves a dado stack with trial and error to get the width to match the plywood bracket, and then a round cutout on the bracket, maybe a large hole with cuts on either side, using either a fly cutter and or a bandsaw. A relatively simple project. But the stacked dado idea for one dado got me thinking that Origin could cut that dado and I could sneak up on the fit by hundredths of an inch until it was just perfect. I agree, it's so hard fine-tuning this stuff for just the thickness of a random sheet of plywood. Okay, back to the letter. That was appealing. As for the cutout for the vac, that could easily be visualized as half of a slot, and the recent upgrade to Origin added slots to the on-tool design. So with a single piece of birch plywood mounted to workstation, I was able to apply a dado and cut out a slot, cut the pieces apart, and voila, a pretty nice wall stand for my tool. Pictures attached. We'll get to those. The second project involved an Asian fan that my wife wanted a display for. This would have 2 arms sticking up out of a base and offset by 1 inch, and spaced apart to hold this fan open for display. Again, I'm thinking a small mortise in the base for each arm and a small tenon on the end of each arm to fit into the base. Drill and square the holes, cut the small tenons on a bandsaw with fence, all traditional. Again, Shaper has changed my thinking on how to approach the project. Laying a grid across the base pieces allows me to accurately position these offset mortises, half-inch square, wherever I want them, quickly. Then, mounting the 2 arms vertically in the workstation allows me to lay down a half-inch square tenon on the end of the arm, even matching the radius of the corners to match the radius of the mortise I've just cut in the base. I did use the bandsaw to cut the slots on the arms that hold the fan, but it couldn't have been easier, and I thought the nice figured maple added to the project. Thanks for all you do to support and promote your product. I'm pretty regular on Thursdays at the seminars, and anytime I've had a question or needed help, your support people have always been quick to get back to me. I've been a believer in the product before it was a product and have not been disappointed. It's the only tool I own that regularly improves itself without me having to do anything. Carrie.
Thank you so much, Gary.
Yeah, thank you
That was
so
awesome.
much. Yeah. We're going to send you something nice.
Yeah.
$50 coming your way. So get back to your email shortly, write you discount code, all that. But here, let's take a look at some of these photos. So here's that bracket. Super simple. You got a dado over here. You've got a slot. You're cutting out these rectangles. It's all fitting together. But, I mean, just to nail the width on that weird sheet of plywood,
Yeah.
you know, it's always 0.726 or 0.713 inches. It's never 3/4 of an inch. So I love that. And here it is with the vacuum. And then here we've got a fan stand. Simple, but you want the dimensions on this just to be just right. And it's really easy to think about boards and tenons when you're planning things out with that grid.
That's super cool.
Thank you so much. We love letters also. Please send us letters.
Nice. That was a nice change
I know.
of pace.
Big smile on
Yeah.
my face, right? That's all we've got for announcements.
Yeah.
Let's get back to cutting hinges in this box lid.
Okay. I think I've figured out the orientation of your grain here. This came from... He cut this on the bandsaw, or on the table saw, so it should be the same piece of wood.
I should have labeled it.
But this grain on this elm is nutty. But that feels right.
That looks right.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks right.
So that is the front.
I can't blame you too much, Jake, because, I mean, to me, I made a mistake earlier, and I think that this box is upside down. I meant for the lid to be the base. I meant for the base to be the lid. I think it's more grounded if the grain is the other direction, so it is what it is.
It is what it is.
It is what it is.
All right.
Squaring that up on the shelf there.
And I'm going to use some double-sided tape. I like this 1-inch stuff because, it feels less wasteful.
And Jake, we're 45 minutes into the show right now, so I think when you get this taped up, I think we can just cruise through the 3 setups. I'll let you just rip on it, and I'll narrate off to the side here, because Jake's got a flight to catch, like we said.
Got a journey ahead.
We don't want to bore you guys either. We went through all this already. We're going to do exactly the same thing that we did with the box on the lid. We're going to grid the left side. We're going to grid the right side, and then we're going to center point or rectangle grid on the front rail. I don't even know what the terminology would be for that. The front face of the box to cut the latch plate for this mortise lock.
Bingo.
Bingo.
All right, back to that probing bit. Done with the 16th inch bit.
Done with the 16th inch bit. It's a nice bit, though. You used the 16th inch bit for the inlay show last week, right? But that was a down cutting bit.
Yeah.
Okay, this is an upcut. Good to have an arsenal of 16th inch bits for that weird stuff. Okay, we're starting with a scan. New scan because the lid's in a new position here. And we're going to start with a grid on that left-hand side. You know what would be cool, Jake? Because you've got the probing bit in here, I'm going to throw a wild card out here. What if we grid and place the left, grid and place the right, grid and place the mortise lock, and then come back with that 6mm bit and cut it all out?
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Oh, nice. I love when we're on the same wavelength.
All right, hinge. Grab it. I'm going to rotate 180.
6mm in.
And place the X direction 6mm.
If your side rail was 15mm, you would place that 7.5mm in. All we're doing is dividing that side rail dimension by 2. All right, making another grid so that we can place the other hinge template relative to that right-hand corner. Same exact thing. Rotate 180. And we're going to place that at -6. Beautiful. All right, last but not least, we are going to drop the catch plate in here, and that's going to be a rectangle probe right on the center of the front rail of this box. 5 points, first 2 on the same edge. Nice, get that side.
Oh, I did it again.
What?
Forgot to check the create new grid button.
Oh, no.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's nice to not accidentally overwrite your grid.
I think I'd prefer it that way.
Prefer it that way. Best that that's the default. But it's quick enough to do it again.
Sweet.
Okay.
Import. And
Should be a lid side for that. Right on the center.
Sweet. All right, we are all set up.
Mm-hmm. So now we're going to swap over to that 6mm bit. I think we've never done this on the show before either. Done multiple grids in a row like this and set up a bunch of things and then gone back to cut them. We're always back and forth with gridding, cutting, gridding, cutting, gridding, cutting. But this is really smart, I got to say.
And again, if you're doing 5 different boxes, or 5 of all the same box rather, all this setup is done. Just swap, cut, swap, cut.
Yeah.
All right, 6mm bit, Z-touch, off of the edge. Auto pass, roughing offset, add a little something something to the depth, and here we go.
Okay. All right, so we're just going to cut all this stuff out. We've got 2 hinges to cut, 2 passes each with auto pass. First one's going to be a roughing pass, and then that finishing pass is going to come back and take off just the last 0.5 millimeter on that. Nice. Off to the next hinge. And we know that these hinges fit really well with no offset because we tested those in the box. When we get to cutting the catch plate for the mortise lock, we're definitely going to want to test that because the mortise lock itself fit a little snug. The catch plate's a separate part, so it might fit the same as the lock, or it might fit more similarly to the hinges. We don't really know until we try it out. But I feel pretty comfortable saying that the hinges themselves are going to fit perfectly with no offset. Now, the catch plate for the lock has 2 steps on it. Again, 1 step for the plate itself, and then some clearance area behind it for where that lock catch swings up. Because you saw the lock on this protrudes probably 4 or 5 millimeters, something like that. Finish pass on this, and this is that show surface, so you want to make sure that you're taking your time with this and being nice and smooth with it. And just like we did for the mortise part of this lock, that deep mortise, Jake's going ahead and cutting that second step. And this one is just a little deeper, so 0.197, about 5 millimeters on this. Here's the catch plate for that. Right there when you want to do your test fit.
Elm is very stringy.
It is stringy, isn't it? I wonder if that's because it's air dried and it might still be a little damp.
Oh, maybe. Or that's what makes it a really good bending wood too.
Could be.
Just knocking those strings off so they don't get in the way of the fit.
This is turning into a fine box after all.
It's turning into a fine box. Okay.
Yep, there you go.
Catch plate.
Now, you know what? Before you press that in all the way,
Yeah,
I'm not sure which direction it goes.
me neither. But I'm going to need to take probably that same
That 5 thou?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cool. Then once we're confident in that, we can pop it all off and examine the direction, because the catch on this, there's clearance for the catch on the back side of this plate. And yeah, go ahead and rip that out. And we're not sure, thinking about this spatially, which side that clearance is supposed to be on, but we'll look at that in a second. Nice, -5 thousandths cleanup pass on this. Just making that pocket a little bigger.
Yep.
Feel good?
Yeah, it feels great. Okay, so if it comes up that way, it's to lock like that. Can now confidently take this off. There we go. So it wants to go in
that way.
that way.
Nice. There we go. Beautiful.
We got a hinge. You have another hinge for me?
Yeah. Here we go. It's another hinge. And here's something that I learned from Andrew at Smart Boxmaker. The center should go up of the three here. I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. This is so small. There's 3 knuckles on this. There's a side, and a center. And the center goes up. The center is the side that goes into the lid. The 2 fingers are the side that go into the box.
Did he say why?
Because if you look at the back, the stuff that makes it stop at 95 degrees, you can't see if you put the center in the lid, but you can see if you put the center in the box. So it just makes it a little more graceful. Oh yeah, I could hear that. That sounded good.
Catch plate.
Did that plate just fall out? Ha!
If that catch plate stayed in, that would be pretty perfect.
If we had a flathead screwdriver in the shop. If you know where our flathead screwdriver went, reach out to us at sessions@shapertools.com.
That is just remarkable, too.
Yeah, isn't that nice? It's a fine box.
It's a fine box.
Look at the knuckles on the back of that box. I like how they just stick out half the pivot distance on that.
You know, in fine box making, it's the details like that that really matters.
It's the details like that that really matter. Hold on. Turn it back around so we can look at that keyhole with the key sticking out again.
An opportunity to do a really creative inlay right there.
Oh, yeah.
That the escutcheon's cut into.
Uh-huh. That was fun.
That was fun. This is a nice little box.
All right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us on a fine box making adventure. We knew about 90% of what we were getting into when we started this, and we figured out some things as we went along.
Thanks, everyone. Take care.
See you next time.